In order to work with type successfully, it's important to know how to measure it, and also how to get a sense of how different type sizes feel while in use. You might think that type would be measured in one of the metrics that we looked at in the last video, but in fact, it's measured by another metric, body. The body of a letter form is an invisible box around it that alludes to the metal block letters that used to be attached in the days of metal type. Because some typefaces have bigger body sizes than others, two typefaces set in the same point size, they appear quite different in size when they're set in text. The height of a typeface's body is called its point size, and it's measured in points. Points have a direct relationship to inches. There's 72 points in a single inch, and there's 12 points that make up a pica. So there's 6 picas in 1 inch. Points are abbreviated to PT and picas to P. Another notation for 6 picas and 3 points is 6P3. Now, all of this may seem obscure, but it's a standard method for measuring not only type, but the spaces around type in a page's layout. So it's really important to get a feel for this measurement system. In the days of metal type, letter forms couldn't be scaled dramatically, so fonts were sold in standard sizes, chosen for their pleasing relationship to one another. Nowadays, you can set type at just about any size that you like, but these standard sizes still persist as the defaults in typesetting software like InDesign, because they're really useful as a baseline reference point. To get a sense of how these different sizes feel in actual use, it's helpful to divide them up and by what functions they often serve in typographic layout. 120, 96, and 72 points, and even 48 point type is quite large, and it's often used for headlines. 36 and 24 point type is smaller, and it's often used for subheads. And 12, 11, 10, and 9 point type is generally used for bodies of text. And for reference, type in a paperback novel is usually set around 9, 8, and even 6 point. 6 point type is kind of small, but it's still legible, and it's often used for notes and other important information. Besides the absolute measuring units of points and picas, typographers also use a few relative measuring units, mostly describing the horizontal spacing. An M is a horizontal space that's just as wide as the type is tall. So if you're setting point at 16 point type, the size of an space of an M space is set to 16 points wide. A horizontal space that's half as wide as an M space is known as an N space. And there are other, less common spaces that are some fraction of a space. While it's not essential to have a complete mastery of typographic measurements, it is important to have a rough sense of how these different type sizes look in practice, especially because most digital typesetting environments don't have a one-to-one scale relationship to printed type.